Hey everybody, today we're talking about public opinion and polls, and we'll do a follow-up activity in class on Thursday, mainly about polls, a little bit about a public opinion, but that's what we'll concentrate on. Alrighty. So first up is a picture here. You've got President Truman holding up a paper from the Chicago Daily Tribune saying that Dewey defeats Truman, but that never actually happened. This headline was based on a Reader Digest poll that said that Dewey was going to defeat Truman. So the Tribune went ahead and printed up the headlines and printed out the papers because they were so confident in this poll result. Alrighty, and then obviously it did not happen, as Truman was the one who won the election. We can look as recent as 2016 also to get some poll mistakes. Most of the polls heading into the election had Donald Trump losing to Hillary Clinton, but we know that that did not happen. So you see polls, politicians like to use polls, the media likes to use polls. Just remember when you see these things, there are errors that happen and they can't be taken as gospel. So just remember that when you see all these polls coming up for 2020 in the election. So let's get rolling here. How do we measure public opinion? What is public opinion? That's what the public, so me and you, think about issues. And it can be, as controversial as, immigration, gun control, abortion, whatever it might be, to simpler things. Okay. But whatever we as a group, as a whole, think of an issue, that's the public opinion. Now, there's not one single public opinion that's out there. There's too many people in this country. It's too diverse of a population for there to be a single public opinion on something. There's probably maybe a few cold hard facts out there that can't be disputed, but even those are up in the air sometimes. There's people who think the earth is flat and Australia is not real and things like that. So even cold hard facts sometimes are disputed, but just remember there's not one single public opinion out there. So how do we measure public opinion? Well, a lot of times it's through polls, and the problem with polls is that they measure a small number of people, 1,500 to 2,000 oftentimes, who are supposed to represent everybody else. Okay, that's a pretty small number to represent such a large population. So keep that in mind when you see these polls. Hey, they didn't poll everybody in the country. They didn't poll everybody in the state. They didn't poll everybody in the county or district or whatever it might be. They polled a small number of people, and then they did some math and they made some educated guesses. So keep that in mind. The big thing to look at when you look at polls is the sampling error. Okay, that is the amount of inaccuracy that could possibly be in a poll, and it's the plus or minus 3. And this can get tricky, especially in close races. Okay, where maybe somebody's leading 46 to 44, but that 46 could actually be 43, and that 44 could actually be 47. So just keep that in mind when you see these polls. There's no poll out there that's 100% accurate. What are the types of sampling? We got random sampling, where everybody should have an equal opportunity of being selected. So they could call you, they could call me, they could call your parents, whoever. Okay. And then stratified sampling, divide the country into 4 sampling regions, then randomly select counties and metro areas. So divide the country up, and then, let's take the Atlanta area, let's take the Miami area, let's take this rural county, White County up in North Georgia, or Lowndes County down in South Georgia, or whatever it might be. Okay, just randomly taking some regions. Who uses polls? Political elites. The media likes to use them because it's a talking point. We are in a 24-hour news cycle. They have to find stuff to talk about a lot of times. So, hey, let's throw this poll up there and bring this expert on and let them talk about it. So the media loves to use polls, and they love to make guesses based on the polls. Political consultants love to use them, and they have to use them. They are looking to help their politicians get elected, and one way they do that is through polls. Hey, you're struggling in this area. We need to pick it up. We need to make some changes to your campaign down in this region of the country, or this part of the state, or this part of the district. So political consultants are going to use these quite a bit. There's a show on HBO called Veep, where one of the guys' only sole jobs is to look at polls and poll and poll and poll and poll and get numbers for the politicians, the president and the vice president, to look at and make decisions on. How is info acquired? Telephone. They'll randomly call. Calls replace telephone numbers within randomly chosen exchanges. This is getting difficult because of cell phones. People me included. I don't answer numbers very often that I don't know. So if I don't recognize a number, I generally don't pick up, and then I'll block it. So they're having more and more trouble calling people. Online is the biggest thing, and obviously in today's technological age, online is the quickest and easiest way to run a poll. All right, but used to be the phones, and it's changing. Why do policymakers like polls? Well, the main thing is that it's a way to have an understanding of what the people want. Because remember, they're running and they're trying to get us to vote for them. So they like to run polls to get an idea. Well, I need votes in this area. What do those people want? They want lower taxes, higher taxes. I don't know if anybody's ever said they want higher taxes, but do they want this stuff? And so the policymakers can use that to help form their campaigns, to help form their strategies, and try and make a decision on how am I going to get the most votes. Criticisms of polls discourages bold leadership. Hey, instead of making decisions based on your gut and things like that, well, I better not make a choice right now. I need to go see what the people want. I gotta run a poll first. Bandwagon effect. The bandwagon is where you're jumping on certain issues. Maybe you didn't run on a certain issue very strongly, but now, hey, it's a big deal, so let me jump on that. Drowns out the real issues, because if you look at a poll, maybe that's what the media is making the important thing, but maybe that's not the real issue. Okay, pollsters alter wording of questions. If you looked at the stuff, remember the questions you did in class on Wednesday, some of those questions were really weird. Okay, and they were worded really weirdly. That happens in polls too, not just public opinion polls, but any kind of number of polls. And then there's a bias there also. Okay, the data collection, how is it done, and how are the results interpreted? Once again, there is bias in all that stuff. So keep that in mind when you're seeing these polls. A cartoon. If the election were held today, which candidate would I be wrong about you voting for? It's just a cartoon saying the polls are wrong oftentimes. The different types of polls that are out there, and then this is done. Tracking polls. Okay, these are conducted all the time, and they involve small groups, small areas. Okay, and they are used oftentimes by the presidential candidates to try and gear their campaign strategies towards those areas that they're going. So, hey, I'm campaigning in Georgia. Let me run a poll down in South Georgia because I'm going to be at Valdosta tomorrow. Then let me run another poll up in Atlanta so I can kind of maybe switch my speech around a little bit. So these are constantly being ran and being used by the candidates. Exit polls, you're probably going to, if you look at any websites, you're going to see a lot of exit polls today. Tomorrow you can find a bunch of people. They take it from people when they're leaving the voting booth. Okay, and so they try and get an idea of, well, how did you vote? Okay, and this is for some of those early results. All the media wants to be first to report stuff, so they're going to run exit polls and they're going to try and make a guess sometimes. They are not very good indicators though of success, so just keep that in mind if you see some exit polls on days of elections. Like if we have a runoff, keep that in mind if you see an exit poll. People don't always tell the truth, okay, about who they voted for, so there is problems with its honesty and true outcomes. Push polls, these are the robocalls. You probably got a couple of robocalls. Maybe I got one or two from people just making a call. There was a big to-do about a fake robocall that was out there with this current election. So they happen all the time. But they give out untrue information. Okay. They are usually or possibly done by a rival. So someone that you're running against maybe calls up people and says, hey, did you know that this person had declared bankruptcy back in 2008 or whatever it might be. So they will tell untruth. And sometimes they're serious accusations. Sometimes they're not. But they do happen, unfortunately. Okay. And most everybody will say, no, we don't do this. And a lot of times the candidates probably don't have anything to do with it. Maybe it's an interest group or some other institution like that. Okay, but they do unfortunately happen. Straw polls. These are just quick little polls done by newspapers, radio stations, people like that. and they are very limited in their scope. And lastly, what polls reveal about Americans? Highly educated, but have a low level of political knowledge. That's why hopefully you're getting some knowledge from this class, because a lot of people don't know much about the politics of America. Like a basic awareness of the world around them. We're very concerned with our own little world. Who's to blame? Any number of people could be blamed, and there's always someone to blame: schools, media, whatever it might be. And we do understand what basic values we want upheld. So most of us have a pretty good idea, and it comes from that political socialization piece that you had PowerPoint on, and then we worked on in class on Wednesday. We have an idea of what we want and what we like from a politician, and we find those people usually to vote for. All right, thanks. We'll be working on this stuff in class on Thursday. Have a good afternoon.